Well, session 9 is we're working through the book of First Thessalonians to learn about making disciples in the context of our D groups. It has us still in First Thessalonians 2, 11 through 12, where Paul is talking about disciple making being like fatherhood, where you speak with authority into people's lives. And the reason why we're spending so much time on this idea, this practice of speaking with authority, is because it is such a taboo thing to do in our culture. It really makes us scared. But the scriptures say all over the place that speaking with this authority is absolutely critical to the growth of God's people and the mission that he is on in reconciling people to himself. It's the way that God works through people is by them speaking with authority his word. And so we need to learn how to do that. Now, last session we looked at authority in the scriptures very often, especially when it's dealing with authority within God's people, is painted with the picture of a shepherd. That a shepherd, as he's leading his flock, does four things. A shepherd knows his sheep, leads their sheep, feeds their sheep, and protects their sheep. And last session, we spent a lot of time looking at how do we know people? How do we move from, here's just what's going on in your life, to what do you think about it, and how do you feel? But if we're moving towards people in relationships, getting to know them, well then how does that help us speak with authority into their lives to feed, lead, and protect them? See, knowing people helps us then, in their lives, get to what we talked about in session 4 as the real core of discipleship, the real core of making disciples. Now, what I'm doing as a disciple of Christ is continually in my own life, and what I'm calling other people to, what Paul states in 1 Thessalonians 1, 9 through 10, that I am constantly trying to and calling other people to turn to God from idols to worship and serve the living and true God. That's what we're doing. That's the authority. That's the call that we're issuing into each other's lives. We want that especially to come into play in our D groups or in our small group relationships, those fight clubs, where we're saying to one another, turn to God from idols to worship and serve the living and true God. So how does knowing people, as I'm trying to do this with authority, help me? Well, knowing somebody, what's going on in their life, what they think about it, and how they feel about it, helps me understand and see places in their life where they're turned to either a God himself or they're turned to an idol. So what the scriptures say is that my life is a continual display of what we can call the root-fruit principle. That the way that I respond to the circumstances of my life just simply shows where my heart is rooted, where it's grounded. The fruit of my life, my reactions, the way that I live my day is just evidence of where my trust really is. Is it in God or is it in idols? As we talked about in session 4, there's 3 core needs I'm continually trying to fill in my life. I need security, I need identity, and I need relationship. And the way that I'm reacting throughout my day to my circumstances is simply an indicator of what I'm trusting in to get those 3 core things. So as I come to know somebody, what's going on in their life, what they think about that, and how they feel about that, what that is just an indicator of where they're rooted. This picture is painted very clearly for us in Jeremiah 17, 5 through 10. And in that passage, what the prophet paints a picture of is that of 2 trees. 2 trees that have the same circumstance of heat. But the way they respond, the fruit they bear of either thorns or fruit has everything to do with where they're rooted. That when the sun comes up, the tree that is rooted in themselves, created thing, idols, bears the fruit of death. But the tree that's rooted in trust in God bears fruit no matter how hot the heat is. The fruit of the Spirit being love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Where that fruit is evident in our lives, that's just an indication of where our root is, what we're trusting in for those 3 core needs. So as we're looking to speak with authority into people's lives, to turn to God from idols, to worship and serve the living and true God, that's what we're looking for. As we're coming to know somebody, what fruit is their life bearing? Then that'll help us start to understand how we need to feed, lead, and protect them in light of an indication of where their life's rooted. That's what we're trying to do in speaking with authority. Knowing somebody that helps me to see as a shepherd how I need to get to the root, where we need to get to the root.